Good morning, my fellow Australians, and welcome to What Lies in the Sunday Telegraph for the 1st of December 2019. Summer is here. Gee, let's hope the weather doesn't get hotter in summer, huh? Sure. So, what is going on in this video? Some of you are asking. I am armed with a copy of Australia's #1 selling newspaper, the Sunday Telegraph. And we are going to read it and apply the power of critical thinking and try and figure out just what's going on in this country we live in which millions of people, well, hundreds of thousands of people, buy this newspaper and are informed by it, because I believe that's actually a more important and bigger question than people have been willing to give heed to. So, let's crack on. For regular viewers, hooray, the paper was actually delivered today, so I didn't have to buy it twice. And what do we got on the cover? Heroes on the Bridge, Stand and Fight. So this is the incident on London Bridge where a paroled terrorist, he had been convicted of terrorist offences and was out on parole, has killed 2 people, which is awful, and was then apprehended by ordinary members of the community, as seems to be the way with these attacks, which is also good. One of the apprehenders had a narwhal tusk, which is really cool. And then the police shot the offender. Admittedly, in defense of the police, he was wearing a faked up bomb jacket. And in that situation, putting a bullet in the head versus letting him trigger the bomb. If the bomb jacket hasn't already gone off by the time the policeman with the gun gets there, is the thing on a dead man's circuit, will it blow up if you kill him? I guess if his hands are visible, you got some chance that that's not how it's set up. You know, I mean, there was a horrible case where they shot the hell out of a Brazilian electrician because they thought he was wearing a bomb jacket, which he was not. No one's going to cry for this guy. Well, I guess he's probably got family and some friends, they'll cry, but you're going to start stabbing people in public, sympathy is always going to be limited, isn't it? I mean, I do love how, the brown people are terrifying for, without wanting to seem callous. What seems like a relatively minor incident on the other side of the world, you might think something, like Angus Taylor allegedly doctoring documents in support of his wife's run to be Lord Mayor of Sydney. I guess they just don't have the photos. Very private people, our political leaders these days, aren't they? Right, the ripple effect is still going on about... So this is the mixed picks, the editor's pick of the best. This is page 2 of the Sunday Telegraph. So the ripple effect, how to talk to your kids about party drugs. Because, if you just say the right words, it won't happen. If only every generation of human beings, parents, had known how to talk to their kids about whatever drugs were available in their time, then no one would take any drugs and would probably have no art. Just might have killed each other. The rise of the facial, it's the hottest skincare trend of the summer. I believe they're talking about a facial for your back, or just special treatment of your skin all over, I suppose, at this point. Gee, beauticians got nothing to gain by this trend, do they? We've got a complete guide to the summer of cricket. 19 secret beaches from around Australia. Not so secret once they've been in the paper, have they? But, if there's any steep walking involved to get to it, the Telegraph audience is unlikely to inundate it. Samantha X, all sobered up and finding God. High-profile call girl opens up on her new life. Santa's little pets. Turns out some families like to have their pets involved in their Christmas photos. And that's one of the best stories in this newspaper, this 100-odd page newspaper, as chosen by its editor, is the word that sometimes families with pets like to include their pets in their Christmas photos. My word. Oh, and someone's doing a reno on a big house. I love Kevin McLeod. I could watch him forever, but boy, the imitators are tedious, aren't they? Okay, getting into the actual newspaper. This is fun. Lib's new climate in Warringah. Liberal members have told the party it must meet local views on climate change and energy policy and choose a candidate more representative of local public opinion if it wants to reclaim the prize seat of Warringah. Because, people who live at sea level, they're suddenly less interested in whatever the coal industry's current line of crap is about why we shouldn't worry, because they're actually worried, because the water's actually rising. And they paid a lot of money for that land that's about to be inundated. And if there's one thing that we care about in this country, it's people who own land. We literally don't give a crap about anyone else, but people who own land, my God, we better look after them. Israel Folau says, I don't hate, I am just spreading the love. Yeah, mate, I think you need to see the world through other people's eyes there. Okay, we have a couple in swimwear. Former Australian Olympic swimmer James Magnuson with his girlfriend Rose McAvoy at Rose Bay. Don't care. A very fast train connecting regional areas to Sydney would stop in Parramatta before whisking commuters to Wollongong and the Central Coast under early concept plans for the lines. So, you know, they've gone from saying we should have a hub in Parramatta to drawing some fictional lines on the map. Right, in water polo news, as if the Kelly Lane story didn't tell you something was going on there. A young water polo referee accused of sexually assaulting a player has been hit with fresh charges after a second alleged victim came forward. Matthew Emmanuel Goldman, 19, was suspended from Water Polo New South Wales after a 14-year-old girl alleged he had assaulted her. It can be revealed Goldman has now been charged with sexually assaulting another young woman. The offences, sexual intercourse without consent and assault with act of indecency, don't relate to his role as a water polo referee and allegedly occurred in South Coogee last year. Annika Smethurst reports that jail fear behind Hanson's union flip. Fears union officials could be thrown in jail may have swayed Pauline Hanson to block the government's union-busting deal. The only thing swaying Pauline Hanson are money and electoral advantage, and in that regard, she's not much better or worse than anyone else. 1 foot under and 9 to a grave is the headline. Rookwood's radical funeral plan. Families would be able to bury as many as 9 relatives in the one grave and just 40 centimetres deep in a radical plan to ease Sydney's land squeeze. Yeah, all these glossy stories about real estate, you know, there's consequences at the other. There's consequences all around, frankly, about the country's fixation with real estate value. You know, the huge opportunity cost of things we could have invested in that would have been useful instead of the land that's always there. And so we get mention of bushfires. Bushfire danger to get worse. At least one home confirmed lost in a fire near Canberra. Now, Braid was about an hour's drive from Canberra. You can definitely see the fires from the high points in Canberra, though. The worst is not over, with firefighters preparing for deteriorating conditions today and tomorrow as westerly winds fan fire fronts up and down the coast. No mention of what's causing the fires. Okay, so parents are being advised that schools will operate as per usual on Thursday despite a statewide stop work meeting for teachers. The stop work meeting will see teachers vote on their industrial agreement with the New South Wales Department of Education. I question in 2019 whether it's actually necessary to have a stop work meeting to conduct a physical vote of members, particularly when the vote's dispersed across the whole state anyway. I think more modern methods might be possible, but teachers want to go on strike for whatever's. I'm not going to complain about that. I'm just saying don't bullshit us about it. Fires plane plan crashes. The aviation watchdog has banned firefighters from using their flagship water bomber and Black Hawk helicopters to rush reinforcements to a fire emergency. The state's first permanent Boeing 737 tanker, Marie Bashir, was supposed to be able to transport 70 firefighters anywhere in the state within an hour, but the Civil Aviation Safety Authority has not given approval for passengers. Yeah, well, if you want to carry people on a plane, you've got to get approvals for it. And the last thing we want is an air disaster involving 70 firefighters being rushed to an emergency, do we? Might make things a bit worse. You know, the plane crash would probably start fires if nothing else. And yeah, I get that the plane probably isn't that dangerous to fly because it's been rated for water bombing, so you assume it's quite robust, but come on. Let's not relax air safety standards in a panic. So we've got 2 more pages on the London terror attack. The gentleman in question does have very bushy eyebrows and a significant beard, so plain to type there. They're going on about have a go heroes and ordinary people stopping violent people, which is good. Oh, 2 more pages of London terror attack, as if that's useful news. Racehorse trainer Darren Weir is suspected of using secret betting accounts to place bets for almost $10,000 a race before being caught up in the Jigger scandal. I'm sure he'll be a revered pillar of the racing community on the day he dies. Natalie Grise is coming back to help farmers. She will host The Farmer Wants a Wife on Channel 7. Moving from Channel 9 like Sonia Kruger. It's good to see that Channel 7 has lots of good ideas to revitalise its collapsing business model. Aside from, you know, advancing the rise of fascism in Australia. It's weird watching 9 and 7 in a race for it. I guess their ageing audiences are heading that way. It's really disappointing that so many people who had left-wing ideas in their youth, as they get older and really become disenchanted with the political system, instead of trying to embrace some sense of communities coming together in solidarity. It doesn't need to be as left-wing as communism or socialism, but just, real grassroots action to bring about better political outcomes. They just go full bottle fascist. And I guess they want to sit at home and watch it on broadcast TV as some great leader solves all the problems for them, instead of them having to get off their bums and do it. Because, the meetings are tedious. I have sympathy for sitting at home watching TV, hoping someone else will fix it. I have sympathy for that view. We've tried that. It's not working, is it? You've got to get off your ass. Okay, so this is a Sudan Levy special talking about how whiz-bang some... it's talking about naloxone. This isn't even news. The Lazarus drug is now free. A medication that reverses drug overdoses is so successfully... It is named the Lazarus drug will today become free, a move that could save 3 lives a day. Well, it's not free. The government's paying for it instead of the end users, but... Naloxone... Anyway... Why Sudan Levy exists except to sprue the pharmaceutical lobby in the pages of the Sunday Telegraph is, I guess, no worse than why Peter Kremlin exists, but it's a funny one. Water deal for farmers. The federal government has released new details about how it will funnel 100 gigalitres of Murray River water towards fodder producers struggling with the drought. I'm willing to bet these fodder producers will turn out to be vast soy farms owned by American agribusiness. Just don't know that for sure. I've just got a feeling in my bones. Wonder how much of the soy will actually... Well, there's a lot of waste product in soy that does end up in fodder, but then there's high-value extracts as well. Royal Fire Service Chief Shane Fitzsimmons has delivered an unprecedented slapdown of a Labor frontbencher after she claimed he was a puppet for the government. Opposition Emergency Services spokeswoman Trish Doyle had accused Emergency Services Minister David Elliott of forcing Mr Fitzsimmons to declare the fire service had never had it so good. This is funny because the Telegraph really didn't run much at all when fire chiefs all over Australia were saying the government's refusing to meet them and fund them and deal with climate change. But this little bit, where the fire chief has to say, oh, no, I'm not a puppet. Oh, that's a slapdown. It's a spray. So there's a touching story of 2 kids who've been part of a bone marrow transplant. I wish them well. Oh, we're going wild for our new zoo. Family Pastors Sydney Zoo. Grand opening. sydneyzoo.com. Okay, this is in Bungaribbi near Blacktown, the Sydney Zoo. I guess that'll stop the oiks catching the ferry to Taronga, won't it? Probably works for everyone. In a grim kind of way. Hey, wow, Kelly Lane. More water polo shenanigans in Coogee. Oh, right. Former top prosecutor, they're referring to him. Director of Public Prosecutions, Nicholas Cowdrey, has written a book in which he talks about the Kelly Lane case because he only had to resign over that, didn't he? So Cowdrey's re-prosecuting his arguments and is upset with things judges did that didn't please him. I've always had a bit of sympathy for Neil Cowdrey. He seemed like a intelligent man trying to do the right thing, but I've got to say, without wanting to read the 2 pages involved here, he just seems a little fixated given that he actually got the outcome he was pushing for. All right, so here's a feel-good kind of story. Veterans help save suicidal mates. Veterans at risk of suicide will be paired with ex-servicemen and women who have overcome their own mental health battles as party of a national program to help Australia's war heroes. That's their typo, not mine, misspoken. It's going to be a party, huh? A successful trial in Townsville. The government will today reveal 14 new sites across Australia where veterans with mental health training will be deployed. It's more mental health employment issue. I mean, we do need more trained mental health professionals desperately. I'd say we mostly need more psychiatrists than counsellors, but okay, here we go. Animals and Santa. Gotta say, some of them look like they've been chroma keyed in there. News. Page 28 and 29. Right, chick out who's up for a big wedding. This is in The Source, the political gossip. Kerry Chikarovsky is... So Kerry Chikarovsky, the former Liberal Party leader and frequent appearer on the drum, trying to be the acceptable face of conservative values, is also going to be a marriage celebrant now. That's a nice tie-in. Bridget McKenzie has been forced to cancel her annual shooting event. As chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Shooting group, she's traditionally spread Christmas cheer by taking a busload of journalists to fire guns at clay targets in a wooden area outside Canberra. But a scorching 34-degree day put an end to the event. I mean, every day, not every day, most days this November just gone, in Canberra have been over 34 degrees. So it's not an exceptional heat day anymore, even in spring. Speaking of Christmas spirit, The Source reckons late-night debates in Parliament might be a little more spirited next week, with a full calendar of Christmas parties scheduled in Canberra. Only for wankers. The Nationals bash on Tuesday, which in the past has delivered disco moves from George Christensen and even a karaoke performance from former PM Tony Abbott. Coalition staffers will hold their knees up on Wednesday with the hope someone will fill the mango daiquiri-shaped hole left by Indigenous Affairs Minister Nigel Scullion. Scott Morrison will also throw open the doors of the lodge one night to the press gallery who are hoping to sample a SCO mojito or SCO mimosas. Labor caucus members and staff will gather on Thursday night after Parliament closes for 2019. The Source couldn't help but wonder how much taxpayers would spend on accommodation for the opposition to spend an extra night in Canberra for their Christmas do. Well, there's some Christmas cheer for you. Remember how the Liberal Party doesn't have any factions? A unity deal between the Liberal left and right factions was supposed to boost numbers for both on the powerful state council when the annual election for positions were held last week. Instead, it was Scott Morrison's centre-right faction that came out gloating after a breakaway group of moderates rejected the deal to back the right, instead supporting an independent left ticket. The left split delivered the centre at least one extra seat on the council, instead of losing four as had been anticipated. A centre-right source said the empowered position would enable the faction to exert greater influence at the next pre-selections. Among those in danger includes Senator Concetta Fierravanti-Wells, whom the Source claimed had no chance of returning, while the future of centre-right back Senator Jim Molan has been secured. The world rearranges itself for the Molans once again. So, the snitch, law and order gossip, is talking about Ryan Watsford, who's a nice Anglo kind of guy, and his treatment at the hands of those nasty Ibrahims. Incidentally, in news not covered so far here, Sydney's relaxing its lockout laws everywhere except King's Cross. And given that Mr. Ibrahim has quite a lot of lawyers on his plate, I reckon there's a fair challenge that this is unduly punitive and aimed specifically at Mr. Ibrahim's interests. As part of its usual rah-rah Sydney, the Sunday Telegraph is telling us that they're a true global city, pointing out the suburbs where the world wants to live. So Filipinos like Blacktown, South Koreans like Chatswood, New Zealanders like Manly, Canadians like Bondi, South Africans like Manly, Chinese like Chatswood, Indians like Parramatta, UK folk like Manly, Indonesians like Kensington, USA likes Bondi, Singapore likes Mossman, Hong Kong likes Chatswood, Germans like Manly, and Japanese like Mossman. So Manly's looking a bit like the Third Reich, isn't it? Okay, so Halo Go, an online petrol delivery business like Uber Eats, but for your car. There are significant numbers of people out there who are incapable of filling their petrol tanks as needed. I kind of like the fact they're off the road for a section of the time, but yeah, progress marches on. Finks try to recruit in prison. A Finks bikie gang recruitment drive inside our prisons has been thwarted. Yeah, bikie gangs recruit in prisons, and they have not been thwarted. They might have been inconvenienced. All right, another riot at the Frank Baxter Youth Justice Centre. Oh, Woolworths CEO is out talking to the farmers with hay bales, bailing out the farmers. Stand with drought-affected communities by donating to one of these charities at your local Woolworths store. No good act is possible in this country without someone's commercial interest being met, is it? So Sam Chisholm's old cattle farm's been sold. Looks very nice. Right, and the real estate's also talking about Clive James's old Coggera house, which apparently is still standing. Quite astonishing considering it looks pretty awful and the land would be worth a lot more. Okay. The ripple effect, which was a multi-page wraparound of the whole paper last week, is now down at page 40. in the hope that talking to your kids in a certain way will stop them taking the drugs that, if they want to take them, they're probably going to take anyway. In the same font, we're really going big on pink. You wonder if they've got a bucket of pink dye they haven't been able to move. Ready to explode, the Summer of Cricket lift-out special. Pat Cummins and our best cricketers are primed for a summer of action like never before. It's not an Ashes year. What do we got? The Big Bash, so domestic competition. The Women's T20 World Cup. A one-day series against India. And the arrival of the world's most underrated cricket team. I wonder who they are. Oh, New Zealand. We're trying to get excited about New Zealand, are we? David Warner's had a good innings, which I guess it's good. I mean, good innings. He's hit 300, not out. In that Buffy Australians who don't like to think too much, they've got a hero. That's good, I guess. They're going to idolise someone, aren't they? May as well be him. Oddly enough, the facial, as in the faithful for your back, is giving them a lot of reasons to put women wearing nothing but bikini bottoms in the paper. Yeah, tastefully covering up anything that apparently is unacceptable for newspapers. God help anyone see a breast in print. So tips for your summer barbecue. Put things on sticks, grill it. I love how you can do pages and pages of wellness and then have a wellness lift out on top of that. Oh yeah, dog torch is still in. And then we're pretending golf's interesting. Don't get me wrong, I get that golf is interesting to people who like golf. They're probably not watching this video though, are they? So let's just all agree. Golf is for the worst people on earth. They probably all like horse racing. Jessica Halloran is talking about the wonderful Carolyn Buchanan and the horrific injuries she suffered in a quad bike accident that she's now recovering from. I wish her well. She seems like a good sort. Sorry, I'm just skipping through drought coverage. Things are dry. We're not talking about climate change, though. Help farmers. Don't talk about climate change. Don't do anything to affect the coal miners, but just, you know, Band-Aid over the farmers' agony. All right, women in Sudan are celebrating legally after a law that banned them from drinking alcohol or wearing clothing deemed to be revealing was repealed. Excellent. That's something. Worth noting, fun fact about Sudan, it's actually, despite being constantly portrayed as a famine-stricken dust bowl, large chunks of the country are some of the most fertile in the world and produces an enormous amount of food, all of which is produced on land owned by Gulf state, mostly Saudi interests, and all the food goes to feed the Gulf states and the Sudanese staff. So there's a blueprint for the future for you. Right, Iraq PM to resign. We're actually covering the Iraqi protests. That's something. Prime Minister Adil Abdullah Mahdi has announced his intention to resign, but it does not stop violent protests sweeping Iraq, with 4 more killed after his statement. They are going to have to form a new government somehow now. Okay, cool. There's a cocaine submarine's been interdicted off the coast of the Atlantic. 3 tons of coke on board. Only worth 110 million, so they're not recouping their submarine investment, I would have thought. Well, probably buy a cheapo submarine for $1 million or so, I guess. Okay, it all makes sense now when you think about it. Airstrikes on Gaza. Apparently, anyone who dares to question the Israeli treatment of Palestinians is an anti-Semite. I question that myself. Amazon warehouses across Europe were hit by different types of protests on Black Friday, with its workers going on strike in the UK and Germany. Climate activists attacked the environmental costs of delivering millions of items ordered from Amazon from other online retailers. Still prefer home delivery to go to the shops. I'm sorry, folks. Polls say win, but Bojo is worried. Boris Johnson has warned voters of a threat of a hung parliament, despite opinion polls predicting a massive win. Opinion polls are actually lower for the Conservatives now than they were at the same stage where Theresa May ended up with a hung parliament. So, again, don't believe anything you read in billionaire-owned press about the UK election, because they just want to kill Jeremy Corbyn with an axe, and they don't care if Boris Johnson is what they get. despite how on earth could a person be Prime Minister when he can't even confirm how many children he's fathered or whether he's supported them. Can't answer either of those questions. Has been asked, doesn't answer. Right, so the barefoot investor is saying success isn't a flashy car. Not on its own. Right, Peter Credlin's bemoaning the Senate because it hasn't done what she wanted. This is to do with Jacqui, Lambie and Pauline Hanson blocking the government's union reform bill with, it should be noted, quite a few Labor senators and the Greens. But let's make it all about Jacqui and Pauline. And then we get the schoolgirl musings of Peter Credlin. Often, we are quick to blame politicians when things aren't working as well as we think they should. And fair enough, quite a few of them could lift their game, and then some. But the system deserves scrutiny. And if you want to know why the government is so hard in this country, the Senate is not a bad place to start. The defeat this week of the Union Governance Bill designed to ensure that bullies like John Setka are kept out has again highlighted the problem of the Senate and how hard it is for any centre-right government to make its policies happen. Centre-right governments. Yeah, right. You know what? It's actually relatively easy to pass things in the Senate if you engage with the crossbench senators, negotiate with them in good faith, and give them things they want in exchange for things you want, instead of saying, we have got a 2-seat majority and therefore we will do everything we want and anyone who gets in our way is wrong. Meanwhile, we're going to criminalise minor infractions in unions and our banking buddies can keep funding pedophiles, which Peter was very upset about last week, but that seems to slip by the wayside when unionists have raised their ugly heads. Cool. Senate's unrepresentative swill. Peter can't make it work. She also can't get an amendment up to anything that's acceptable to the Australian public, so she's just going to have to live with it. But boy, at least she's not being particularly racist in this week's column, which is a great improvement. From Peter, we get the thumbs up. UK's religious leaders of all faiths who have entered the political debate to argue against the election of anti-Semitic Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn. It's worth noting that it's been in the US State Department playbook for about 20 years to brand any vaguely lefty person in the third world who's threatening power an anti-Semite. And it's coming home to roost in what we think of as the first world now. Thumbs down. The federal court's decision that asylum seekers don't even have to be personally seen by a doctor under the Labour-backed medevac laws shows again why it undermines our borders. God forbid sick people get some competent medical treatment. Humanity undermines our borders, according to Peter. And Labour's out of touch on Taylor. Labour's parliamentary week started with question after question to Energy Minister Angus Taylor about a false document on travel expenses that was the basis of a letter to the Lord Mayor of Sydney, and ended with question after question to the Prime Minister about a phone call he made to the New South Wales Police Commissioner, who happened to be his former neighbour. I mean, talk about the Canberra bubble. I spent most of the week in Dubbo talking to farmers who can't feed their stock because of drought, and a generation of government inaction when it comes to building dams. And climate change, Peter. Climate change. And, yeah, that nice Angus Taylor who's just trying to help his wife get elected Lord Mayor by allegedly falsifying documents and presenting them to the media. And then making some interesting statements to Parliament that don't appear to be supported by the facts, but I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of that one day. Okay, Piers Ackerman, the old fat bastard. Remember he campaigned in a t-shirt for Tony Abbott at the unsuccessful Warringah run in May. As Christmas rolls around again, the lovies will be hoping and wishing things go better for them in the next 12 months than the last. They didn't get Bill Shorten in last May's election, and they didn't even get Malcolm Turnbull, though they know he would have won if he hadn't been tossed out of the leadership by those who knew him best as parliamentary colleagues. You know what? I can't speak for all lefties. I'm barely a lefty myself. I'm just someone who's watched the right go screaming off on its own. But I can tell you, nobody thought Malcolm Turnbull was going to win the election except Malcolm Turnbull. Don't go pinning that one on lefties. And perhaps the ultimate believers in hopey, wishy thinking are the staff at... Now, this is just like, we've won, you suck. Thinking the world can be made a better place is wishful thinking. The headline is Lefty's long list of wishful thinking makes Santa Claus seem believable. And this is a trick the spokespeople of the oligarchy perpetuate, is that nothing can ever change. Nothing can ever be changed. You must tolerate this situation. Whereas a more hopeful view of the world, and one supported by fact, is that there is no structure made by humans that cannot be unmade by humans. That, oh, it's just wishful wash. You can't help anything. Everything's stuck this way. You just got to do what the coal billionaires tell you. That's the message. So the Sunday Telegraph editorial does not like the Rookwood plan at all. Australians deserve real estate even in death, and their own real estate at that. No share houses for real Australians in death. In fact, you've created a real estate system where single people can't afford their own domicile. Still pumping up their ripple effect bullshit. Examining young Australians' obsession with party drugs. So, movies. The Two Popes, which is about Francis and Benedict. Starring Anthony Hopkins. That gets 3 stars. Mrs. Lowry and Son gets 3 stars. The Addams Family animated remake only gets 2.5. And Martha, A Picture Story only gets, 3.5, which is a good ranking. Oh, okay. 2 pages on the best Christmas movies of all time. Kerry Parnell's complaining about the 10-year challenge on social media, possibly because that might have been a cruel decade for her. So it certainly wasn't a good one for me, I can tell you. A lot less of the grey stuff when I started the teens. So we've got a page of Insider just talking about how there's a lot of streaming services at the moment. I still can't come at Disney Plus. I want to watch The Mandalorian. I just can't quite come at doing Disney Plus as well. I got Apple TV free with the new iPhone, and there's some good shows on that. I'm not sure enough to justify another subscription. Nowhere near enough to justify another subscription. Okay, Annette Sharp's really hard hitting this week, celebrating Fox Studios' blockbuster past. My boss is great, says Annette. And we got a cute picture of Rachel Brosnahan talking about being on Marvellous Ms. Maisel, which my partner loathes the show. I quite like it. Anywho, that's Australia's best-selling newspaper, full of distraction and fluff. Not, I believe, one mention of climate change at all, even while referring to why Angus Taylor wrote his letter that got him in trouble, which he shouldn't be in trouble for, because he's a nice guy. Thanks for making it this far, folks. Do please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends if you think this might be something they'd enjoy is the wrong word, but find valuable. Yeah. We're trying to find value here. Create value, in fact. And on that note, I'll see you next week.